Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to work on a whole bunch of miscellaneous stuff. So we're going to be unhooking the power box here. Very, very simple. The heater hoses, which are way back here, we're going to try to get to those and get them off the heater core. We're also going to be trying to tie up the power steering lines to the fan shroud here, just because they're going to stay with the engine and frame. And then we're going to remove the brake system over here and try to keep it attached to the frame as well. And basically start removing things that are attached to the van body that are going to stay with the frame. So it's going to be a little tedious today. I'm going to try and film as much of this as possible because a lot of it's going to be very tight, closed spaces. Obviously, we have two heater hoses that go in here that I can't even get my hand on, and I need a light to see them. So we're going to be moving a whole bunch of stuff out of the way here so that we can get to that and try to show you as much of that as possible. So today it's going to be a little bit funky for you. However, we're going to try and do our best to show you everything. So, if you're doing this to your van, that you know what you're going to be encountering. Now, granted, the 6 liter is a big engine. The fan's massive here. I know that the past couple videos have been a little bit strange, not too much close-up viewing of stuff. However, it's kind of hard to actually do that with what we're doing here. It's such tight space. We did, however, find out that this whole unit here, it's pretty well compromised. I know originally we had said that we would be able to probably fix this. However, I think what's going to happen is we can still buy this horn over here. So that's this whole unit. And I think what's going to end up happening is we're going to end up taking this fender off at a later date before we put the body back on the van and putting a new horn in here. So that's probably going to be what happens a little bit later. I will have our resident body guy do that for us because it's a lot of spot welding and a lot of messing around. So once we get the body off, we'll probably end up taking this over to his shop, just the body, and having him replace this horn here. And we're doing that because we want to try to negate any problems with this. As you buy this whole unit from Ford, it comes as this piece, and this piece. I don't know if they're separate, but you get them all as one. I want to say that it's all one piece, but I'm not quite sure. I don't have it here to really show it to you. However, it comes all the way over and it spot welds to the inner side of the apron here, which we're going to have to replace the bottom of this apron that you can't see. And then it comes over here and gets spot welded to the top. And then also here in the sides behind the fender that you also can't see. So it'll be removing the electrical box and some other pieces that are spot welded to this panel. And in that scenario, that also gives us a solution for the 2 broken bolts up here, as well as the broken bolt down here. So we have 3 broken bolts in this panel itself, and replacing this whole unit would actually prevent us from having to drill these bolts out and figure out something to do with those. So that's obviously way later down the road. However, we're going to try to get as much of this out of here as possible so that we can get the body off this van. Like I said, this is still a learning experience for me. I've never done one of these before, but like I tell everybody, it's just nuts and bolts. So follow along, and hopefully we can both learn something. So my main goal right here now is I want to try to get to these heater hoses. And to get to the heater hoses, that requires us to have to move this wiring harness. And this ground has to come off anyway because it's attached to the alternator bracket over here. So we're going to be removing the ground here. This map sensor is also going to be taken off and just laid off to the side to give us a little bit more room. And then we can actually take this AC line that's bolted right here and take it off, and then it's flexible, so that'll give us a smidge more room to get our hands back in there to get these heater hoses off. So we're going to start with that, and the heater hoses are the typical quick disconnects that aren't very quick, so we're going to see what we do with that. So the map sensor has a vacuum hose. Pull it off, it'll stay with the engine anyway. It'll give you a little bit more room to move this map sensor out of your way. So over here, we have a vacuum hose that is going to run down to the vacuum pump. It should be this one here. So it goes and routes all around down to the vacuum pump. So we'll unclip this here a little bit later, but I want to make sure that it's not going to cause us a problem, but leave it up here so that I can make sure that it's not going to get caught on anything because it runs down behind the computer. So to get this wiring harness accessory off, there's a bunch of 5.5mm bolts that hold it on. So we're going to take those out and drop it out of there. So we have this much of it free here. You can take these ones off over here too. It might give you a little bit more access. So as you can see, we have barely enough. I'd like to get a little bit more. So I took the vacuum bank off here. We'll just put the bolt back in it so we don't have to worry about it. So that gives us a little bit more access here just to give that some freedom to move. And we're going to go ahead now and disconnect the AC line here from the box. So that'll let us get a little bit more movement here as well. So you can see we got a lot more movement out of that hose there. So now we can actually see the heater hoses. So let's see if I can get you to see this over here. I may have to take a bungee and hold this up so that you can see really, really well. But they're in there. So here we have our heater hoses. We've got the one on the top here and the one down below it. You can see that they are the Ford Lovely quick disconnects that don't ever quick disconnect. So probably going to end up fighting with those a little bit. But that's where the heater hoses are. And we're going to try to get those off of there. And you can see that this one loops back around. It's under the transmission dipstick here. And then we have that one there, which also loops back around. So you can see that they both loop right here. So right there and the one behind it. So they both loop. And we'll have to get those off of there so that we can get the engine out easily. And you can see that that is the firewall there. And if we take the dog box off, we might be able to get access to that, but it's not going to be much better because we'll be doing that blind. So we'll see how we get this out of here. So I've got a pick here, and these hoses kind of suck. So this can actually go up there a little bit more. Looks like the bracket for that's actually broken off. Might have to try to fix that once we get this all disconnected, because you can see it was rubbing. No, maybe not. You can't really see it here, but it was rubbing on the AC line that we moved there. Well, I'm going to go ahead and disconnect this intercooler pipe. This one here, because it would give me a little bit more room to get in there. So to get this intercooler pipe to move a little bit, there's a bolt way back in here. It's a little 8mm bolt here. So that will give us a little bit of freedom to move this intercooler pipe around. Okay, so we actually got that one off of there, and I'm just trying to get the clip because there's a O-ring and a spacer in here that you got to make sure that you don't lose, and I'll have to try to show that to you later on once we get this a little bit more accessible so I can show you these pieces and parts. Because I don't necessarily want to just let this go and lose pieces. Anyway, let's see. Can we see in here? So inside here, inside this hose, there is, now whenever I pulled this all apart here, you can see that there's an O-ring, and then a spacer, and then an O-ring. So you want to make sure that whenever you take this all apart that you don't lose any of these things. So we're just going to kind of push that all back in there. So you have an O-ring, spacer, an O-ring, and then it would be the plastic retainer back there. It's a little bit hard to see. You can see it back there. So what you do is you basically squeeze those ears together that you see on the left and the right, and you pull the black plastic hose off. Now that plastic ear should come off of there, but they don't always come off because there's a lip that they're latched onto. So you got to kind of work it off. So we may not get that off until we get the body off, but at least we're getting somewhere here. So we pulled this one out, and we lost an O-ring there, but it's way down there on the frame. So I don't know if I can get to it or not. Probably have to get a grabber to get that off of there. But I'm going to show you how those come off. So you can see how we, well, maybe not, if we focus up here. There we go. So you can see how we have the plastic retainer, an O-ring, and then that nylon spacer, and then there should be another O-ring. Well, right now the O-ring is down here on the frame somewhere. Let's see, right there. So we're going to have to grab it down there and put everything back into the fitting that we've taken off. So I can't get my hand in there, so I got to get a grabber. Okay, so we retrieve that out of there. Just gonna wipe it off a little bit here, get any crap that's on there off of there. And then we're gonna put this one back in. Then we'll reach back in there and grab the rest of it. So we're just gonna do one at a time. We've got this spacer. And then the other O-ring. So now that we have the coolant lines disconnected here, I'm actually going to take a marker and put a U on the upper one, so we know that they have the correct flow. So I just put a mark on there, you can see it. So the reason we did that was so we know that the flow is correct in and out of the heater core, even though it really doesn't make a difference. But with the tight quarters that these vans really are, you really should have everything back in the way that it's supposed to be. And you can see here that these have a slight memory where they want to go. So we're going to make sure that they just hang out there and they're not going to give us any problems. So this line here that I keep moving out of the way is the AC line, and I had talked about the groove worn into it before, and this is because the transmission dipstick is broken. You can see that it moves around, so we're going to have to fix that as well. However, that pretty much covers this side of what we have to disconnect. We still have to, remove the AC system completely, so we have to dig down here and see where these AC lines connect and disconnect, because this line comes from the, let's see if you can see here. So this line here that I'm touching, it goes down to the AC compressor, and this one goes down to the AC compressor. So we may end up disconnecting here, removing the electrical box over here, and then that would give us the ability to, actually, this hose here that we have bagged, this actually goes down to the compressor, so we have to unbolt it here, and then that would go with the engine, and we'll disconnect this fitting here, and this would go with the engine. So obviously when we disconnect these, we have to bag these, and this one's already bagged, and you can see we have this one bagged as well, and we have these also marked. So I have this one as upper, so the obviously the top one here goes on the top, and the bottom one here goes on the bottom. So make sure that we put those back where they're supposed to be. So at this point now, we can go ahead, and I'm not going to disconnect this AC. That's something I'll do at the very last moment. And since we disconnected these heater hoses up here, we have our lower radiator hose down here, which has started dripping again. So hopefully we can get all the leftover coolant out of this before we start moving it all over the place. So our next tons of fun project here is going to be getting all of this disconnected here. So we're going to stuff that AC, or the we're going to stuff that power steering back in there, and then we'll put this guy back here as well, because these are going to stay with the frame and the engine. And what I'm probably going to end up doing here is removing this coolant hose and the coolant bottle just to give me some more room. Now, as far as these hoses go, this hose would be here. You know, we had taken these off earlier. And then the hose that was on the radiator that was over here, it actually says TNK on the side of the line that goes to that. So we don't have to worry too much about remembering which one that was. So we have the tank here. And instead of having this kind of like be in the way all the time, as you can see, it's dripping. And actually doing that made a little bit more coolant come out of the lower radiator hose. So this has to come out anyway so we can get to the FICM, which is buried over here in the corner. And we're going to go ahead and remove this clamp. So I had said earlier in another video about these pliers. They're very handy for Fords. So let's see if we can get this to latch the way I want it to. So I'll show you why I like these. So these spring clamps can kind of screw you up, and these pliers have the little dents on them. So these are self-latching clamps. So you can move it off to the side, and they grip really, really well. And since these are self-latching clamps, I can move it off to the side, and it'll actually latch and stay. So that's why I like these pliers. You just got to be careful, because if you're not paying attention, that thing will clamp onto you. So we got that coolant hose off. We'll just kind of tuck it away there. Now, this is where the FICM is on a van. Don't mind this wire. We have no idea what this wire is for. Came with the van. Doesn't really go anywhere. So this is all connected to the engine. So you have to take that bottle out so that you can get to this FICM and unplug it. So the one thing we are going to do now is we're going to disconnect the battery power to the van, which would be on that side of the engine. So that's this little guy over here. So we're going to disconnect that stud so we take power away from the van. And the only reason we're doing that is because we're going to be messing with the FICM and the PCM. Now, we don't have the batteries disconnected on this van, and the only reason we don't have them disconnected is because they suck to disconnect. So this is going to be our disconnect for now, and I'm going to put a bunch of tape around this stud because it'll be live. So right now this wire over here is live. So we're just going to tape it up. So that is all taped up there. Somebody put a impact in your way. So this is all taped up, so we don't have to worry about this sparking or anything like that. So this is live right now. And then there's also a clip down here. So now we're just going to take this and let it hang completely out of the way. We don't have to worry about bumping into it or anything like that. So now that we have the batteries disconnected, we can come over here and start working on our FICM again, and then our PCM is right here. So we'll be disconnecting the plugs out of the PCM because one of them does go to the engine, and we're just going to disconnect them all and remove the PCM from the equation so we don't have to worry about it getting damaged in any way. So over here, FICM, so we're just going to unplug this FICM. And these can kind of suck to get out. Sometimes they kind of get a little bit tight. So you got to watch because you do not want to break these. So they have a pinch style connector here. So you can see the latch in the middle on the top here and the latch on the bottom right here. So basically you squeeze these like this and they will pull out. So get in here and you can squeeze and just pull gently. So the one thing I will do here is I'm going to mark these. I'll put a 1 and a 1 and a 2 and a 2 and a 3 and a 3. You can't mix them up but it's a lot easier to just see the reference and make sure that they go in the exact same spot. You can see they have a memory, but this is just preventative maintenance or just covering my butt, so to speak. So we just mark those with a paint marker, and it's just extra security so that we don't try to shove a plug somewhere it's not supposed to be. So we have this disconnected, and this runs over to the engine, and as we start disconnecting stuff, we'll have, as we raise the body up, we're just going to have to fish this out of here. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take the air box out, and the only reason I'm taking the air box out is to make my life easier getting this master cylinder off and the ABS box down here. So I don't believe this is actually bolted in any way, and you can see we need a new air filter here. So yeah, the air box is not bolted in, but the bracket for it is. So it might be easier just to remove the bracket instead of trying to pull it out of the grommets. So I think at this point, we're going to go ahead and transition underneath the wheel well here. So you can see what we're doing as far as getting the ABS module disconnected, which is down here, and then also getting the air box out so we can have free reign to get to all of these pieces and parts. And like I had said previously, we're going to be fishing this stuff out with the body coming off, so it won't be too bad to do. It's just a matter of doing it. It's a lot of stuff. So we're down here in the wheel well. So we have this nut here. There's one right here. It's a little hard to see. There's one back here. So that's for the ABS box. And then this one here and this one here is for the air box. So we're going to go ahead and take these off. Now you don't have to take them all the way off. I'm taking these ones all the way off because it's going to be a little bit easier for me to get it out. So you can see that that moves now. And our next order of business is going to be try to get the nuts off of the ABS box. So I was able to get a camera angle here that's going to work for us. So you can see I can't get my ratchet in here. I can get it in over here though. So when you get a bolt or a nut that wants to do what that one just did, put it back on and then take it back off, because what it is there's dirt getting stuck in the threads. And so this one we obviously can't get with the ratchet, so we're going to have to use a ratchet wrench on that one. So we'll break it free here with the regular wrench. And then we have our last one here. So at this point, the ABS box should actually come out of there, but it's hard lined to the master cylinder. So what I mean is we have hard lines that come up to the master cylinder from the ABS box. So for us to get this ABS box completely out, we're going to have to remove the master cylinder from the brake booster back here, and these will come out as a unit, and the ABS box will actually kind of hold this up. So we're going to end up unbolting the master cylinder, pulling this whole unit off, and then that'll kind of just hang over here with the engine so that we can get this body off, because this has to be clear of the body before we can take it off. And we're trying to avoid bleeding brakes again. So at this point, this air box should come out easy. We have some plastic over here. We have some plastic retainers over here that are in the fender, so we'll have to get those pulled out of there, and then this air box should come out. So we'll start with that. So getting these things out sucks. There we go. So once we remove the bracket here, the grommets came out of the fender, and it's a matter of getting it the right direction. So if you take the airbox and pick up on it a little bit, get the bottom out, it'll let you get a little bit more free room there to get this thing out. So this gives us a lot more room. So here now, with this airbox out of the way, you can see that we have some grounds here. So we're going to have to remove this ground here from this harness, because this harness is going to stay with the engine. So we need to make sure that we take that ground off. We don't want to forget that. And then double check and make sure everything is being removed properly. So we have a plug on the side of this master cylinder. So we're going to unplug it. And the reason we unplug it is just to give us a little bit more free room. And also the fact that these sensors and plugs and stuff, the sensors stay on the master, so that'll go with the frame. The plugs are going to stay with the van, so they go with the van. So we have a ground here, but we're going to take that off, and then that'll free this harness completely up. We don't have to worry about this getting caught on anything. So we'll pour our ground off there. I'm just going to slide this nut back on here, just put a couple threads on it. So now that this harness is completely free, it can go with the engine. So over here, let's see, try to make some room here so we can see what we're doing. So I got some of that stuff moved out of your way here. And you can see we have the PCM here. So the PCM is here on a van, and we have these two bottom connectors go with the engine. This top connector stays with the van itself. So what I think we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and disconnect all these plugs. So this is the one that's going to stay with the van, and I've already marked these because we've previously had the PCM out of this van. So you just kind of like flip the connector, and then the connector rod will pull it out. So these have to be disconnected anyway. So that's all part of this main engine harness. So what we're going to do here now, I think, is try to see if I can fish this guy out of here without prying on it too much. So now that we have the engine harness out of the way, this coolant hose will stay with the engine harness as well, or the engine rather. So now that we have the PCM here, I think I'm going to go ahead and pull this PCM out, because it'll give me just a little bit more room to kind of swing the ABS and everything out. But what's nice is there's only one bolt that holds this thing in. I don't think there's one on the back here. Yeah, there's just one bolt that holds this PCM into this bracket, which is really convenient. So, I mean, while, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. Yeah, it sucks to take it all apart, but it's relatively easy if you do the right steps. So, I'm going to pull this out. And I want to say that the bracket comes out also. You can make the bracket come out, but it's bolted in with a bunch of other stuff. So the bracket can stay. I just don't want to damage the PCM in any possible manner. So just that one bolt there and the PCM comes back. So now we just have a little bit more room here for our master cylinder and ABS block to kind of hang out somewhere. We don't have to worry about it getting caught on anything. This will also give us some more room for this power steering assembly here, which we can kind of tuck back in here a little bit like that. So it's all about putting things out of the way. But anyway, so we've got the master cylinder left over here, and I'm just going to do a double check here to make sure that we're not missing anything on this side here. So it looks like we're free and clear as far as parts over here. We have our brake booster hose, which I had mentioned earlier. So I think we're going to work on getting this guy off of here now. So it's this clamp here, and then this hose. So this hose has to stay with the engine, and what it does is it actually routes down behind this PCM, so we can get it out in front here where it's not going to give us any problems, and it can come down with the body. So we're just going to push it down there a little bit. So now that's everything on the side over here. So we have some plugs right here that we can now access easily. So we're going to disconnect these plugs, because these also go to the engine. I hate the big black plug there. So this style of plug, I know it's really, really hard to see. Brent's going to make fun of me because I keep saying really, really. So we have the gray plug here. I'm going to go ahead and get a panel tool for them. Just want to pop these off of here. So that one's actually not even connected anymore. It looks like the clip was broken at some point. So these plugs, this style of plug is notorious for breaking. So I'm trying to not break it. So you can see how this red retainer came out. They like to come out, but the problem is this latch gets broken. So we want to make sure that we don't break anything like that. So these all will stay with the van at this point. Now, if you're concerned about this wiring harness, you can unplug everything on that side and take the fuse box out that's in the front here and remove this whole harness. But we don't need to do that. So right now, the only thing left over here is the booster. And We just got the 2 bolts that hold it on. We've unplugged the sensor on the bottom and the low sensor plug, which will be on the other side in this area here. And we have our heater hoses undone on the other side. So at this point, we only have a steering shaft, which we're going to take the steering shaft off whenever we go to take the body off, because that's our form of steering. So let's get this master cylinder removed here, and hopefully we can get this whole brake unit to be loose, and I'll just leave it for now. And when we go to pull the body, we can just pull the whole thing off and set it off to the side. Because at this point, I want to make sure this is going to come off, make sure it'll move out of the way I want, and then I'll probably end up actually putting it back on, so because we're going to be steering this van, we want it to have brakes. So 2 nuts to remove everything, that's not so bad. So that's a safety feature I think we're going to leave for now, but we're going to take it off to make sure it's going to come off and move the way we want. So these are 9/16. Like I said, we're going to put this master back on. The only reason we're taking it off is to make sure it's going to move the way we want it. So right now we can pull this off of here. And now we should be able to pull this ABS box off. So you can see that this moves kind of free. The lines are flex lines at the bottom there. The only thing that's really holding us up is the fact that we have these power steering hoses over here, and they're just kind of getting in the way. So what we'll do is when we go ahead and pull this van out, pull the body off, we'll go ahead and just let this stuff drape. So that does come off of there, which is great. So we want to make sure that we had some free movement there and see what we needed to do. I'd rather leave the brakes hooked up for now. That way we make sure that we're not going to have any issues with the van rolling away for some stupid reason. So we'll go ahead and put that back on. And realistically, everything on this side is removed to the point where the body will come off. And now on this other side over here, we have to get this AC line off of here and get this AC line off of here, and that way we can bag these and make sure that we're not going to have any contamination. And we'll take this guy off and it'll stay with the engine as well. And we should be ready to lift this body off. So moving forward here. So we took the bolt out here down on the bottom for the AC line. So that'd be this bolt right here. So we took that out, and that gives us a little bit of room to throw your flashlight, but you can unplug the sensor here that's in the line, and then we can just pull this line and it'll stay with the engine. So the only other problem we may have is when we go to pull this off, there is a ground wire here, and the way that it runs may produce a problem. We're just going to have to wait and see how that's going to come apart. Can't really see down in there very well. Might be able to see a little bit better once we take this line off right here. So always, always, always when you are working with your AC system. So we're going to plug that and bag that, and we're just going to bag this one because we have contamination that could possibly get in there. So we plug that one. I could probably plug that one just to be 100% sure. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a bag over this one and a bag over this one. And the reason we're doing that is because we don't want any contamination in the AC system. And also we're going to be bagging these because we want this to be sealed. We don't really necessarily want air to be transferring through the system whatsoever. So the stale air that would be technically in there is fine, but adding air is not fine. I always keep bags for this very reason, because you never know when you need a cheap small plastic bag for something like this. So that's airtight here, and we'll make sure that that stud's not going to be tearing through that bag at all. We'll do the same thing with this guy here. So these are tagged out of the way. This guy can go down and come out with the engine. And now that I can see down in there a little bit better, it looks like these two lines will come out without an issue. So these will just be a little tight here in the front. We'll end up having to push them back underneath this intercooler pipe. And the heater hoses are also out of the way. So let's see if we can give you a better visual down in here. So you can see a little bit here. So we have our AC lines down there, and what that's going to do is these go down to the compressor, and what you can do is the body here that's right in this area, we'll have to push these hoses back and make sure that they don't catch the body as we pull the body up. And then same thing back here, we have our heater hoses, which are completely disconnected here, and that should be just about everything that we need to disconnect on the front of this van. So at this point, we just got a couple bolts that we're going to be putting back in. We've put back in the overflow bottle, or degas bottle I should say, bolts, just stuck them back in, and we put the ground bolt back in up here. We're going to bag the bolts for the wiring harness here, and we have the bolt back here. I'll probably just thread that one back in. So right now this van is pretty much ready for the body to come off. We checked through the back here. The only thing that we're going to do now is we're going to check these front core bolts and make sure that they're going to come out, because we're going to be ordering a bunch of parts for this. We were able to source new body mounts, so we're going to be replacing all of the body mounts. And like I started the video with, we are going to be replacing this piece here. So we'll be having some other things that we need to remove out of the area here, such as the fuse box. So that'll have to come out so that Mike can do his work in getting this repaired. So that's unrelated to removing the body. However, it's just a couple bolts to remove the fuse box plus its power source, which we've already done. So it's not a big problem to get that piece out. We're going to remove the master cylinder and the ABS box. They do have flex lines at the bottom, so we don't have to worry about the lines snapping or bending. So we'll be able to actually take this master cylinder and just kind of flop it over this way. If you're concerned about this wiring harness here, it literally just unclips. There's only one clip over here holding it on, but it's not going to be in the way for anything. So I'm just going to test out these body bolts here and see if they're going to come out, which I'm hoping that they do come out, and we're not going to worry about snapping anything off for those or trying to have a problem with that, because they just go down through and they're inside the frame in the box section there. And then we'll do the same thing with the back two, make sure they're going to come out, and just put them back in so we don't have to worry about the body shifting or anything like that on us when we're moving it. So that is how you get to the front of a 6-liter, basically, in one of these vans. And we're going to go ahead and video taking the body off. That's not going to happen here today, obviously. That's going to be another day. So once we get the body off of this, we'll video that and show you if we run into any other issues. So we'll pull that off, and then we're going to bring the frame back inside, and we're going to start disassembling this engine here and seeing what all we are getting ourselves into. Because as of right now, this is still a pretty daunting task. I mean, it's a lot of work, but we'll make it happen. We'll get it all done. So I said I was going to get to checking these front bolts for the core support here. This one came out okay. It spun a little bit, had to run it in and out a little. No big deal. This side, however, which I figured was not going to be the problem, was a problem. And you can't get to the bottom of the mount except through the bumper hole here, so the front of the frame. So you have to take the bumper off to get to this mount. And I had tried pry bars, I tried clamps, I tried pretty much anything to get this mount to stop spinning underneath the core support and inside the frame. There's no good place to get a set of locks or channel locks or anything like that inside here. So the only thing that I could figure out that would hold that mount was this 48-inch pry bar. So basically what you do is you have to stick it in here, find that mount, and you'll see this moving here. So you put a bunch of pressure on that like this, and I basically took the impact and just ran that bolt out. Had to run it in and out a couple times, but that got that bolt out of there. And then they're just loosely threaded in there, so this body could actually shift on here. But the engine's not going to be running, so it's not going to make a huge difference. If it does move a little bit, it's not going to be able to fall off. So that's the idea here. But we're going to go ahead and check those back ones out. And I know that this is kind of a patch into the video here, but I wanted to show that to you and show you what you might have to do to get the front bolts out. For now, that'll be the end of this one, and we're going to go ahead and get this body off, and that's the next time you'll see a video on this van, so keep a lookout for that one. So hopefully you guys are enjoying this little series on this van, and I thank you for watching the videos. Hopefully this will be helpful for somebody that maybe wants to work on their own van. They have a 6-liter and they're not sure about a van, or even if they have issues finding something, they're trying to find the FICM and it's buried over here in the corner, whereas it's on the engine in the trucks. So hopefully this will help some people out in working on their own van. And I really appreciate if you'd subscribe to the channel, and if somebody might use these videos or need these videos, share them out. So thanks for watching, guys, and we'll catch you on the next one.